on Instagram. There's a guy named Therapy Jeff that we like.
I like him. Yeah.
We listen to him a lot. He has great content, but there was just one that he posted that I thought you may have some opinions on. So
Yeah.
let's
You
listen
told me
to
about
it.
this one. Yeah.
Yep.
You can't be MAGA and also be a therapist. That might sound controversial or a hot take, but it is so fucking not. The TLDR is basically you can't hold space for someone's trauma while supporting the system that has traumatized them. Let me break this down for the MAGA therapists who are already typing their defensive comments. Being a therapist means following an ethical code. Every major mental health organization says you cannot discriminate and you must respect human dignity across all identities. When you support a movement that actively campaigns to erase trans people, rip apart immigrant families, strip away reproductive rights, and roll back civil rights, you are violating your professional ethics. Full stop. And I already know what you're about to say. You're going to say, but Jeff, I can separate my personal beliefs from my professional practice. No, the fuck you can't. You think you can sit with your trans client terrified of losing healthcare when you voted for the people trying to legislate them out of existence? That is gaslighting. You think you can hold space for the undocumented woman having panic attacks about deportation while supporting the administration that wants to make that her reality? You are cruel. And don't tell me MAGA therapists only see MAGA clients, so it's fine. That's actually bullshit. Plenty don't advertise their politics and take whoever books with them. But even if they did, you're still providing therapeutic cover for harmful ideologies. That is not ethical. Some of y'all hide behind, I treat everyone with respect regardless of politics, but supporting MAGA isn't a neutral stance like tax policy. It's an active endorsement of harm against specific people based on their identity. This isn't about silencing conservatives. Fiscally conservative? Ew, but fine, I guess. Traditional values? Ick, but you do you. But when your politics actively threaten the safety of marginalized people, many trying to heal from the exact trauma your politics perpetuate, we have a problem. And I know some MAGA therapist is going to say, well, Jeff, you couldn't ethically counsel someone who's MAGA, so that makes you just as bad. Wrong, dude. I can do it better than you. I would challenge the fuck out of those beliefs because that is my job. If you come in spouting rhetoric that harms people, I'm going to explore where that's coming from and how it impacts others. That's actually therapy. You're paying me to challenge you. But a MAGA therapist can't do that with their marginalized clients because they've already decided those clients don't deserve full humanity. Being a therapist means committing to do no harm. MAGA causes harm. It targets harm. It campaigns on harm. You can't pledge to heal people and simultaneously support a movement designed to hurt them.
Okay, so lots to cover here. One of my mentors and friends, Kurt Thompson, early in my career, psychiatrist, said, our job as healers and therapists is to just move the ball down the field. It's not to score. It's not to come up with a winning play and do it all. And I think of myself very differently than Jeff does. I went to school for social work, and so I always joked with people that a social work degree is actually a degree in activism because it does prepare you and indoctrinate you, I should say, into understanding the history of abuse in our country, in civil rights, in healthcare, and understand your biases. So I think Jeff is right to be pointing out that is one of our duties as a profession. But then I feel like this smacks a lot of hatred. It feels like a lot of hatred being used as leverage. Whenever we call somebody gaslighting, it's like we could up-level our vocabulary a little more than that, Jeff, and actually talk about what is behind what are the motivations, and then address that rather than calling it out, which then just puts somebody on the defensive. Like if we're going to change the dominant movement right now, which is swung so far towards MAGA, we have to connect with people. And there are real people that make these decisions for very complex reasons. If I sit on my high horse and say, I know that for a fact you're a bad person because, you voted this way, and you shouldn't be helping other people move the ball down the field for their mental health, for their sanity. You shouldn't be able to do that. You're disqualified from doing that. Like that to me is how we slide into this never-ending cycle of blame and pointing the fingers. Like we are all in this soup together. So anyway.
I have a question though. So if to his example, if there is a MAGA therapist has a trans client.
Great question. Yes.
Okay, hold on, I'm not done. And that client is in fear of what's happening in the world. How in the world is somebody who believes in the systems and the structures that are creating a really horrible environment for this person? How are they going to help this person bring the ball down the field?
I believe if Jeff was in a teaching mindset about this and instructing therapists how to deal with this ethically, you would actually use a case example like that. Instead of the broad brush, if you're MAGA, you shouldn't be a therapist. That's kind of a bullshitty way to get some attention, I think. I don't think it actually teaches people how to navigate that complexity. So what I would do as a teacher is talk about the role of the therapist and the duty of the therapist to understand their own biases. And if they cannot work with those biases and get them to neutralize their judgments towards certain race, class, gender, sexual orientation, then they should disqualify themselves from that treatment or refer to someone else. That's just one of the things we do all the time. It's called practicing out of scope. And so I think what Jeff is getting at is I would rather him say practice within your scope. I mean, that is solid ground ethically. Rather than saying you're not practicing in your scope because you live in this place and you probably voted for MAGA. Like, come on. Like, let's talk about an actual case. Let's not make up stories about people.
Well, I imagine that's probably happening.
Well, but it wasn't talked about in that example. So like I would want to talk about, there's certain cases that I can't work with because, like, let's just say, like, if I lost a loved one in an accident or something, and then a particular kind of thing, and then somebody came to me for that same thing, I would be checked out mentally.
Right.
I'd be taken over by my own emotions. And we talk about boundaries a lot with therapists. I mean, the reason you're paying someone professionally as a therapist is because they have this code of ethics and boundaries. They're not there to be your friend. They're not there to get something from you to feel good. They're there to help you. It's always fiduciary interest about your best interests. So I think the duty falls onto the individual. That's what I would say is, like, just become more responsible. If you're going to help support this movement for whatever reason you come to that conclusion, then you should be very cautious about working with people who you shouldn't be working with, because you're going to be doing harm. You can't do harm. Jeff is right about that. You have to do no harm. But to say that people shouldn't be in the profession of therapy is really, I think, shooting ourselves in the foot. We need to be able to speak to people who are on the fringe. They're skeptical and they're doubtful. And I feel like we alienate, in statements like what Jeff is saying, we alienate the people who are actually pretty close to where we believe, by being so radical ourselves and doing the cancel culture thing. And you can't do this because you're not, until you do this, you can't be part of our group. That's what they're doing. And it just makes me feel icky. I get what he's saying emotionally. And if I wasn't a therapist, I wouldn't get my hackles up so much. But I think there's a more sophisticated conversation to have, but it's not going to play as well on Instagram.
That is true. But I actually don't have much of a response to that. I'm closer to aligning with you based off of what you just said. I sure as hell don't ever want a MAGA therapist, but I'll let that be in my own choice and my own thing. And I find it hard how you can be a therapist and be MAGA, but that's my opinion.
It's a big story. I mean, it's a big conversation. Hopefully you feel free to weigh in on this and let us know.
Yeah, I'm curious what everybody
thoughts.
else thinks too.
Yeah, super curious.
Yeah, we do need a diversity of thought. Just, ideally we put people first.
Thanks for listening to Tripping Over Love. Subscribe now to make sure you get the latest episode, and drop us a comment or a question. See you next time.